your body's not against you. Maybe the pain you're feeling is your body trying to tell you something. You know, your body's symptoms are not purely physical. They always have an emotional and energetic component as well. If you'd like to learn how to assist your body's natural healing process by clearing blocked energies and understanding your body's messages, I invite you to enroll in my step-by-step course, Talk to Your Cells, because you are so much more powerful than you know.
Relief for PTSD, anxiety, pain, insomnia, and many other ailments. Introducing Vibe, the world's only pocket PEMF device. You place in your pocket while cooking, cleaning, relaxing, watching TV, sitting at your computer, reading, or walking. Self-contained standalone device. No drugs. No other phone or Bluetooth connections required. No monthly subscription fees. No apps to download. No boson. The future of medicine is in the frequencies. Come join the revolution.
Well, welcome everybody to another Mindful Monday. And I just want to thank everybody for making us a part of your self-care and mindfulness journey, because I do truly believe that we can do more together, and we're here to support you without judgment and holistically. So thanks for joining us. Now, I hope you are ready to rock out and see how to keep the rhythm going in your business and your life, because I'm really excited to have my guest on here today. He's an inspiring guest. He's a musician and entrepreneur. Tim knows the delicate dance between passion and overwhelm. And after years in the tech world and detour through music, he discovered a powerful truth, which is that both musicians and entrepreneurs share a common challenge, and that's finding clarity amidst the chaos that we are in. So he is the founder of Creative Crew Agency and the host of Work at Home Rockstar podcast, Tim Melanson. So I want to say, Tim he helps fellow creators to simplify their tech and streamline their processes, build freedom in their business rhythms. And he believes that work should support your life and not consume it. And I could not agree more. So Tim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And that's a great intro. Thank you so much.
Yeah, not a problem. I love that. Well, see, for one, music and dancing has always been one of my happy places to go to. So the fact that you have lived in both those worlds, and I've done the computer stuff, and of course now today, I don't think we'd get by without tech in our world. So the fact that you were able to combine all of that is just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I love that too.
Yeah. Can you tell us what inspired you to transfer from a tech career to pursuing your passion for music and then entrepreneurship? How did that journey look like for you?
Well, I mean, it was sort of just, I just went where I liked, right? So I was, it's funny because I didn't get into music until fairly late, compared to my peers. I was in university my last year when I started learning to play guitar. And it was one of those things where I picked up the guitar and I just never put it down. it was like, I estimate probably about 5 hours a day of just playing guitar, practicing during that last year of university. I used it as a reward tool. I'd finish an assignment, play a little bit of guitar, and it was just something that I just really, really enjoyed. And when I ended up moving to, I'm in Canada. I moved to Ottawa. There was big tech companies there, and I started working for one. And on the side, I was going to open mics, and I started getting gigs. And it was one of those things where the way it worked out is that I lived through 8 years of layoffs at that company. And
Wow.
So it was one of those, I think, when you look back at things, it's like, my programming from earlier on was, go get a job, work for a big company and, retire and all that stuff and all 401k, whatever it is in the US. But basically what ended up happening with me is that because of all those layoffs, I never really got settled into that sort of company loyalty that I think a lot of other people, even at that company that I was at, I mean, they were talking about all the heydays of tech, and I never experienced any of it.
Wow.
So I was always sort of like one foot out the door going like, what else? Because I mean, at any time I could be laid off. And eventually I did get laid off. And so when I was looking to, start a bit, like what was I going to do now? Am I going to go get another get another job at a tech company? The funny thing about it was that at this point I was playing gigs quite regularly. And I was like, what company is going to let me go in at 11 because I'm playing a gig the night before
and I need to sleep in.
Absolutely. You play till 2 in the morning at that time. And so it really was kind of that. It was like, well, they gave me a severance package, so maybe I'll just kind of like extend this out. I'll do some gigs, and that's kind of the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. I had been dabbling around with businesses while I was working at that company. As I mentioned, I had my one foot out of the door. I was doing, multi-level marketing sales companies and lots of things just to kind of like learn about business. And so in the end, I just said, well, you know what? I'm just going to give it a go, see what happens. And I started my first company was actually physical tech support. I was going into companies and like setting up their networks and fixing their computers and doing that stuff. And it just kind of rolled from there.
Wow. Well, so for one, it sounds like, two things you actually love, you were able to have it come together.
Mm-hmm.
But so when you first picked up the guitar, and so was there something that inspired you to do that or attracted you to the guitar? I mean, you love the music. Were you self-taught? I mean, or did you go through lessons? What was that like?
Yeah. So, okay. Well, my grandmother was a pianist. She played organ at the church. And so there was music in my family, but I was not interested. I was into sports. And so I remember when my grandmother used to try to sit me down at the piano and teach me a couple little things here and there. I might play a little bit, and then I'm not really into this. But it was sort of, I think, in the back of my mind. But what I really did like is I loved music, and I had this huge music collection, and I just loved listening to music, and I was listening to it all the time. And through some just interesting chance encounters, the girl that I was going out with at the time, who I ended up marrying her and divorcing her. Yeah, sorry, Cole's notes on that one. But she was a great singer. And so the other weird thing that happened is that I ended up meeting in different times 3 different guys that I met. One through a course I was taking. Another one was a boyfriend of a girl that I knew. And then the other one, I can't remember how I knew him. But either way, it ended up on this one night, we got invited to this after party. And these 3 guys were there, and they started playing, and they were amazing. It was just so inspiring to watch them play. 2 of them were brothers. The other guy played bass, and he was a singer. And they were just so incredible. And it turned out they were in a band together. And then one of them, the bass player, needed a place to live for the following year. And I had a room that opened up in the apartment that I was renting. And so I was like, why don't you move in with me? So that was my big opportunity. It was over the summer. My ex was from the United States. And so she actually went back home for the summer. And I said, okay, I have 4 months now to learn enough guitar to be able to play some songs for her when she gets back. And that was my major goal. And then through that entire year, that's why I estimate about 5 hours a day, because it was music central. It wasn't just me. It was they were all in the apartment jamming all the time, every night. So it was just music the entire time. And it was like the best scenario for me, because I'm learning from guys who are playing in a band. So some of the major lessons they said is like, when you learn a song, don't just learn one part of it, learn the whole song, including the bridge. Right. And
Right.
These were just things that you don't like, because there's lots of people that will play and then they get to the bridge and they're like, oh, I don't know this part. I just learned right from the beginning, if you're going to learn a song, go through the whole song.
Nice.
And just that's how it ended up working out, was that it was inspiring to watch them, and it was inspiring to see the growth that I was getting, through it as well.
And I'm sure at that time you probably didn't even know or have an idea of where you were headed. It was just enjoying life or enjoying your down. Sounds like a great stress reliever too.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is a form of meditation, really. I think it's,
Mhm.
or in even therapy. Like it's a time when you're not thinking about anything other than literally now, right? And that, I think, is powerful.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And you obviously must have had some good neighbors. 'Cause I don't know how many people would put up with jamming in an apartment complex. It's a little
It
tough.
it was it's a university town, so I mean, it was sort of normal, but also we had an upstairs and a downstairs, and yeah, the people downstairs was super cool. So yeah, they allowed us to do it through chance, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
Mm.
So when was there a pivotal moment during like your programming days that, influenced you to explore the backup plans? I mean, I know the layoffs you mentioned and stuff, but how did you wind up getting into the online business and network marketing?
Yeah, so like I think the layoffs was kind of the pivotal moment, and it wasn't even just that. It was also while I was going to university, my dad also got laid off, and he was working for a big company, and he was there for, I think it was close to 35 years. I think, I mean, I don't know if this is a story that I'm telling myself or it's actually true, but it was like the day before his 35th anniversary. It was very, very close. He was almost there for 35 years, and then they just let him go because the company was doing whatever restructuring they were doing, and off he goes. He's one of the old guys, I guess, and they
Hmm.
were willing to hire younger, cheaper labor. And that kind of shattered a big thing too, because now all of a sudden this whole advice that you're given by your parents of, just go work for a company, be loyal, and everything they'll take care of you, just
And they don't.
totally didn't work, right? So there was that, and then there was the layoffs that were going on in my company, and it was just like I knew I needed a backup plan, but I also, it was a pretty good paying job, and I was just getting started on my journey. So I just thought, just quitting is a little risky. So I wanted to do something on the side. And then it was just one of my friends that introduced me to the network marketing concept, which of course everybody thinks is a pyramid scheme and is a scam. And so did I. but for me, I sort of looked at it in a different way. I thought, okay, well, I knew that there was some people that were making some money because I could see it. And so I thought, okay, well, they're doing well with it. What is it that they're doing? Like, what can I learn? And I sort of saw it more of as a course. I didn't go into it going like, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire. And I started telling all my friends that I was going to be a millionaire. Like, it was more or less, I'm going to learn some things or two, a
Hmm.
thing or two through this. And, at the time as well, I would say that my communication skills, my sales skills were not super good being a tech person. and, and so at very least, this was teaching me to get out of my comfort zone and go do public speaking more, go talk to people at coffee shops and bookstores. And like, at the very least, I was like, I'm going to learn something from here. I ended up doing quite well with it. I made some pretty good money with it eventually. But I think it was because that was my mindset going into it. And I think a lot of people quit because they get started and then they get a couple no's and then they realize that this, it's not as easy as they thought it was going to be. For me, it was more or less, I wanted to get better and I wanted to improve my ratio. And that attracted me to it.
Yeah, there's a few things you mentioned in there. So for one, that's one of the big, I think, gaps in the generation, because me being a Gen Xer, I grew up in that same time zone where you go to work, you go get a college degree, you go work for somebody, and they don't necessarily, be an entrepreneur. And then you start getting the millennials and stuff where people start looking at them as being lazy, or the parents don't understand why they don't want to be in the same type of work that they are. It's like, because they see how you are when you are coming home. They don't want to come home tired, stressed stressed out, gray, everything else. There's other different ways. So there's kind of that gap there. And like you said, you were seeing it, you were experiencing it yourself. Your dad was experiencing it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that doesn't really make you want to run out and be loyal. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of companies do. And I believe are still doing. I don't know. I haven't played in the corporate world in a long time, but that's what they normally do is wind up letting go people so that they don't have to pay pensions and they pay younger people. So you don't really get anything for your loyalty. So kudos to you for recognizing that and taking your own path there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
And it's funny. I tell people this is judgment free. People can have their own perceptions, but I've been in the network marketing world for over 18 years. And I know that's how people say pyramid scheme. I'm like, have you looked at your job? You want to talk about a pyramid scheme? You're not moving up until someone dies or leaves the company. So,
Yeah.
But people just hear a thing and just, I don't know. Sometimes do you think maybe it's just like out of fear or kind of fear of the unknown? It's not what they're normally brought up to. And instead of maybe at least you were able to see it and know that you were going to learn something from it, because it comes down to what you want to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is just some heavy programming. I'm not sure if it's a grand conspiracy or not. I mean, it probably is. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of them out there, but I just feel like I think that most people have this idea of what it is to be wealthy, and I don't know if it's necessarily real for the most part. I think that we think, the population, I think we know that somebody's pulling the strings and somebody's running everything, and they're making all the money or whatever it is. And we look at that and go, okay, that is manipulating us. And that's true. I think, I mean, somebody's pulling the strings, but then we think that it's like the guy down the street that has a bunch of cars that's doing it. And it's not, it's something totally different. And I think that when we think of rich people, we put everybody into this category of, well, they had to have manipulated and they had to have schemed and they had to have done all these things to make that money in the first place, which I'm sure there are. I mean, there are people that have made a lot of money by scheming, but there's also a lot of people that have made money very honestly. And I think that we don't know how to tell the difference.
No, I think people go off of assumptions. And I know I used to be like one of those people that, if they were wealthy, you put them like up on this pedestal.
Yeah.
And when you actually meet them, they're very down to earth people. And they're like, I had one tell me, don't put me on a pedestal. It hurts when I fall off. It's like, they're no different than us. They just worked harder. They got farther, and they can either help you get along or you can turn your nose up at them and, and not learn anything. There's choices to make.
Well, and I think that that's another one too, is that did they actually work harder or did they work smarter?
Smarter.
Right. I think that that's where there is a big disconnect, is that I think a lot of people think that you have to work hard to get to, these riches. But I would probably argue that the people at the bottom of that pyramid are the ones working the hardest. And it's just, they're not working as efficiently, I'll say, instead of smart as some of the people that are at the top. And it's not to say, like, from what I've seen anyway, it's not to say that the people at the top are working less. They're just doing different things. And is the CEO really, do they really deserve the multi-millions of dollars that they're making for their whatever there is they're doing? I'm not sure. In some circumstances, probably not, right? I mean, especially if they're working for a company that's misusing their employees. However, especially in small businesses, yeah, probably. I mean, that CEO is the visionary of the company. They're the one that is setting the pace. Everybody runs as fast. They cannot run faster than the CEO. So if that company is successful, then it's because of the direction of that person. And sure, they're not making the hamburgers right now,
No, but
But
there has to be someone that came up with it. There has to be a head of everything. So, everything's got a head because somebody had to have, created it and structured it out. But
yeah, exactly. And I think that it's just, you know, I think that we just aren't taught that in our school systems. And as far as I can understand, I don't think it's a huge conspiracy. I think it is what it is. It was that when the industrial age came out, we needed workers for factories, and we created school systems to create workers for factories. That's how I understand the history anyway. And it just hasn't really adopted to the point where it needs to adopt right now. We're still telling people and teaching people how to fit in boxes. And right now, the people that fit in boxes are going to be replaced by AI. So we're going to need to figure out how to create creators now. And that's probably hard to do. It's like wrangling cats. Right? So,
yeah,
yeah.
I really think, it just comes down to people's perceptions, what they're exposed to and what they're open to. Because I think there's a lot you can learn if you're open. And of course, ultimately, the choice is yours to choose whether you want to or don't. But
Mhm.
your path, I think, is just absolutely fascinating, though.
Hmm.
I love the way you have done it. Can you tell us maybe what some of your experiences as a musician, how that shaped your approach to building the Creative Crew agency?
Geez. So I think my experiences as a musician are definitely interesting because so my main other than playing solo shows and in my band, I mean that's great, but really the majority of my time as a musician has been in running jam nights or running open mics.
Hmm.
And so what I do, and actually right now to this day, in the last about 13 years or so, I call them open jams. And what it is, the concept behind it is that I bring all the instruments. I bring like an electronic drum kit. I bring a bass and a guitar and an electric guitar, a few microphones, and I set them all up, and musicians come and play with me. And it was one of those like Field of Dreams things. I'm like, if you build it, they will come type thing. And
I love that.
sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But this
Hmm.
time it worked. I mean, I've been at it for quite a while now, and the experiences have been incredible. It's a lot of both mentorship and a lot of being a mentee at the same time, because I would have people that were far more experienced than me that would come and they would want to jam with me, and I'd also have people that were just getting started out that would come as well. And so I was sort of in the middle all the time of that. And it was, the experiences were great. You're dealing with so many different types of people, so many different types of personalities, and the whole thing, everybody has that one thing in common, is that they love music. And I remember, some of the early kind of like ahas that came to me was like, uh, when you're out there trying to get gigs, for example, like people will not want to pay, like they'll want to pay you with exposure. Like musicians are notoriously underpaid
Right.
for what we provide. And but the way that the programs work, the way that everything works right now, and I hope that it changes, is that we're not really selling music, we're selling booze for the most part. That's how we get paid. We get paid through the revenue of the venue, unless you're selling tickets, and then people will come and see you for you. But very few musicians are actually comfortable with even doing it that way, or even doing cover charges. And so it was just understanding where your income is coming from and who is your customer, right? And
Right.
and those kinds of like, I don't even know. I think technically it was my business that taught me that about music rather than the other way around. Like the part from music that I think helps the business is in all the different types of people that I've been able to talk to and that I've been able to find common ground with. And I do find that is something that I bring into my business a lot, is trying to find common ground very quickly and trying to create a rapport, I guess, with someone. And then the other thing is, I think with music, um, I remember when I was first getting started and I was just learning guitar, and the guys that I was learning from, I mean, thank goodness for them, because the way their attitude was fantastic. And I remember I would play something, and I'd show the guys, hey, check out what I just learned. And I'd play something, and it definitely was not right, like right, but it was close. And I remember they would never say, oh, that's perfect or that's right. They would say, well, that works. And I remember that wording. Because it did work. You don't have to be perfect when you're playing music. You just have to be able to be in harmony with other people. Meaning that, like, if your timing's off, then everything's going to be wonky. But your notes don't have to be perfect. And I think that simplifying things so that people could actually follow you was something that I could definitely bring into the Creative Crew Agency. Because when I work with clients now, mainly what we do is we build websites, we do sales funnels, we do graphic design for just about anything. And also a big component of what I do is tech support. And it's always about trying to figure out how to simplify these tech problems into something that somebody on the other side can understand. Because if I try to just explain to you the tech behind what I'm fixing, that's not going to help you at all. You're not going to remember it. It doesn't really help you anything. But the way that you can remember it is by simplifying it to something that is going to be normal for you to understand. And in music, that's why the podcast runs the way it runs. I create these analogies with music to try to help people understand business problems in the sense of music. That doesn't necessarily work super well with everybody if they're not a musician. So I'll try to figure out what it is that you do, and maybe I can use some analogies to help you understand from where you're coming from.
Yeah, but I think, but every thought, even if they're not a musician, I think most people enjoy music of some sort. May not always be rock, but or whatever, but they enjoy music of some sort. But you had you had a good point, because when you were talking about music, and you don't necessarily have to be perfect, it's just something that works. I think that's something that should easily be applied to business, because if you're waiting to be perfect in your business, you will never get started. Yeah. I have learned perfection is overrated, and when you're perfectly imperfect, things go a lot smoother. So I think there's a lot of correlation in there, and I love how you're able to use all the different terms and the synergies between them to help them both grow.
Yep. Yeah, I remember. I remember. I don't know who it came from, but in order to get good at anything, but this was in the context of music, is in order to get to be a good guitar player, you have to be okay with being a bad one first. And that is the same with business. In order to get to where you need to go, I remember when I was starting my podcast, and you were. Some of the courses that I went to initially to learn, some of these things, I remember them saying, hey, listen, I wasn't a good podcast to begin with. I was actually a terrible host. If you go back, you can go back right now and listen to a couple of my first episodes. Totally night and day.
Yep, same here.
But you had to do it. You're never going to get to where you are right now if you don't go through those bad days. And that's the same thing with business. You are going to be pretty bad at first. And but the thing is that everything sort of just grows with you. Now, when you're first getting started, you have some sort of expertise. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there in the first place. So there's something that that, of course, there's going to be some people that are going to be better than you, and there's going to be some people that are not. And if you just start where you are right now, the people that are going to be able to, that are behind you in their journey, are going to learn from where you are right now. And as you move through, you're going to get better and better and better, and you're going to start to attract more and more people that are getting better with you.
Yeah, I found one to be able to laugh at yourself, because if you start with my first ones, yeah, you'll see a more uptight, probably a more uptight host. You're like worried about everything going right and wrong, and you wind up doing the same with business. But I believe in being authentically, yourself, and people can grow with. I always said people can grow with you, right? They can, if they follow you along, they'll watch and they'll see you grow. And my hope is that people just see it as, hey, if they can do it, so can I. instead of seeing all these people that are like so polished, or they look so polished and like they've got it all together, and then people are like, oh my God, I could never do that.
Yeah.
You really can, because they all started somewhere.
Yeah. 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 If you want some inspiration, go look at some of your heroes' first video.
Yeah, have them send you the very first one.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they still have them. But when you bring up business, and especially with technology and the world today, there are so many tools, trends. It can really be overwhelming,
Mm.
or an overwhelming noise to business owners. So what specific challenges did you face any of those in your early entrepreneurial journey, or have clients that face them? How do you help them overcome them?
Yeah. So for me, I think I probably have like almost an opposite like problem, is that for me, because I'm a techie, I just get wrapped up in the latest new shiny tool, right? And end up spending all this time. And you can, there's so many tools out there, like you say, that you can just get into every one of them, and then you have way too many tools in your arsenal that you're not really being productive anymore. Now you're actually wasting time. So that has been a challenge, I think, is to just kind of like go, okay, what is the minimal set of tools that I can use to get by, and just try to figure out ways to get rid of some of these tools, because in some cases, and actually in most cases nowadays, there are tools that have overlap as well. So you could probably use one tool instead of three, and that can get you a little bit further. Now, there's also the other side of it, is that oftentimes when you have a tool that does three different things, they're probably not super awesome at all three things, right? So there's a bit of a trade-off there, where the three different tools that specialize in that particular area will likely be better overall result than the tool that does all three. But there's always like a trade-off, and there's always a financial trade-off as well. I mean, maybe in the beginning you can get the tool that does all three things, and then as your income increases, then you can start to replace things. But when it comes to like the average entrepreneur, it is extremely difficult to figure out which tools you should be using. And I'd say there's probably two ways that you can go about finding the right tools for you. I'd say number one, figure out who in your industry is someone that you're looking up to, that you want to actually become or model after, and go find out what they use for tools. That's the easiest way. And then just use those tools, right?
Right.
The second way would be to find somebody who is a techie, like me probably, that can actually iron these things out. Because I mean, that is one of my actual longest client that I have right now. I do more of that for him than anything else, really. Is he'll be sending me the latest new shiny tools, and I've got to analyze these tools, figure out how they're going to work for him, and figure out if it's something that he should put some time and money into, or whether what he's using right now is fine. And as time goes on, I think that AI will be very good at doing that as well. I know already I use AI quite a bit to do that. I'll input my entire tech stack and say, hey, are there any improvements that I can make, any overlap? And it'll give you some pretty good advice on what you should do. Mind you, I think right now we're sort of at a weird part in AI where it's really good, but also not really good. So I think it doesn't necessarily, it's still at the point where it's got this confirmation bias, where if you kind of lead it, it'll tell you what you want to hear rather than what is right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that from what I hear, like ear to the ground, that's what they're working on right now, is to kind of remove that a little bit, because it will steer you wrong right now. If you're not careful, you have to make sure that you ask it many fact-checking questions before you actually take its advice.
Yeah, if you're ever a programmer or a techie, then you know that the term garbage in, garbage out. And
Yeah.
if it's getting fed in garbage, you're going to get garbage out.
Yeah. You're right. And
Yeah.
I think that will improve over time, because it's still, I mean, it's been around for a little while, but it is still extremely new. I mean, ChatGPT itself, I think what was it, released in 2023? Like, it's only a couple of years old. So, I mean, it's in its infancy compared to where it's going to be.
Well, and there's so many out there. So you and I may have to talk offline sometime because I have a platform basically where I have dug in because I have a platform for their AI and for my web, and it's an all-in-one business. And I was a backer, so it was a one-time buy, no monthly, no.
Oh yeah.
And I got to the point where I'm like, nope, I am not buying it. I am not paying for another platform. I just need to finish figuring out how all this works because I know I have the tools, but I haven't had the time, to
Yeah.
put in and do it. So. And I think that's another thing people kind of wind up with because like you said, you can go down the shiny rabbit hole and start going, and you wind up drowning in so much stuff that you aren't really doing what you wanted to do
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
propelling your business. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some common misconceptions that entrepreneurs do you think have about technology that you've encountered?
Misconceptions. Uh, it's again, I think it's like a spectrum. I think that there's some people that think that it can do everything and it can't, and some people are just afraid of it and they don't want to get into any of that tech stuff, right? And there's somewhere in the middle. I think that needs to happen. I think that like it can't do everything. Like you still need a personal touch. And I mean, even just there are lots of like people that are implementing like chatbots and all these things that uh, can definitely help for the initial parts of conversations, right? Like
Right.
they can get people to the right person, but you do need a person. I know I have a friend who's a local business owner, and he doesn't want to use any tech for anything really. I mean, he's still using accounting software from 40 years ago, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, it's one of those things where at this point it's starting to hurt his business a little bit, and he's looking to make some changes up with that. But what he does do right is he's a real person, and people can call him and it's just him. And he's still out meeting with clients personally, and he's not using a whole lot of technology in his business. However, uh the flip side of that is that he's spending a lot of time, or people in his staff are spending a lot of time on things that they could be spending a lot less time on. They could be actually focusing on other areas of the business. So I think that the misconceptions will be that are probably either that tech can't do what I can do, and in some cases they're right, but in other cases they're definitely wrong. Tech can do a lot of what you can do a lot faster, but it cannot be a person. And so you still are going to be leagues ahead if someone can reach a real person in their business. So I think that that's probably where we're at right now. And tech definitely with AI will be able to take a lot of things, a lot of those monotonous tasks off people's plates.
Yeah, I know they can definitely help, speed up time, or if you're not totally in a creative moment, but you have to get something done, it can really help guide you. But I will tell you, I personally have a lot of respect for businesses that actually have a live person that
Yeah.
still answers the phone. And I think people that have those for businesses, I think you kind of have to weigh out, the value, because that's a value to people, for a lot of people to be able, because they're tired of having to push this, or you can't get to somebody, and you ever wind up screaming at the phone to just say customer service. Is like, I want a human being.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I think those businesses, I think we'll be seeing that those businesses will start to get ahead if they, still like they need to use some AI. I think they will need to use, well, they don't need to, but they probably will get left behind if they don't use AI for certain things. But customer support is one of those things that I think you're going to still need a person for.
yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
So what ways do you see creativity and structure intersecting in the business of your clients?
Well, so creativity and structure. So I think that the way that I understand technology is that the way I understand the human brain is that we've got two sides. We've got the left side, the right side. We've got the left side that deals with logic. It deals with more the numbers type stuff. And then you get the creative side. Well, tech and structure and all that stuff cannot do the creative side. It can only do the monotonous side. the disadvantage is that a lot of people, including myself, I mean, I love accounting. Like I love the bookkeeping side. I love the numbers. I'm just, it just is what it is. I love doing it. Well, unfortunately, the machines do that way better than I can. It can get through so much more than I can. However, even setting up that structure needs a creative mind to set that up in the first place. So I can use the tools to create a good bookkeeping system, right?
Right.
So that's where the creativity comes in, is, hey, I can link this to this. I can link to, like, I can do some creative things with how I set up my bookkeeping structures. But the actual adding of those numbers together, I mean, am I going to do that in my head? I mean, technically I wasn't already. I was using a calculator, right? So, I mean, you can do all that math in your head, but I mean, that's a pretty good analogy. I mean, you could spend the rest of your days doing math in your head, or you could pick up a calculator, and you'd be crazy to be trying to do that in your head forever. And
yeah. It does keep the mind sharp, but then again, we have a lot. If you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, you have a lot of other things to do than that as well.
Well, and that leads to the next point. Like I've been really like trying to learn as much about AI as I can, and I watch all these different types of AI sort of summits to find out, from all different angles. Like from the business angle, I attended one with Tony Robbins, and then there was one recently that was with Greg Braden. I don't know if you ever heard of him, mm-hmm. but he's a great mind, and he speaks about it from a more of a spiritual side. And he was mentioning something about like this use it or lose it that we have in our physiology. If we don't use something, then our bodies will just stop it. It just won't so creativity is one of those things that he's a little worried about. If we stop using our creativity, then there's a chance that our bodies will just let it go and we won't have access to it anymore. So I that kind of scares me a bit. And so I think that what we need to be even more hyper vigilant about is making sure that our creativity continues to move forward, and that we can use our tools to kind of speed up the ability to create. And I think that that's where the intersection is, really, with create systems that allow us to be more creative.
Yeah. And it is actually possible. I know some ladies that do like meditations or stuff with dragons, and you can actually put it into AI and tell them that you want this, that, and the beautiful pictures that it comes out. And if you don't like it, you can have it redo it. But it's amazing of what it can do and put together for you. And she uses them for meditations, when she has meditations with people, or it'll come up with just the right music. I mean, there's a lot you can definitely do with that.
There is. But I mean, if you look at it that way, I mean, there are some spiritual leaders and teachers that will use like ink blots and stuff, like, and that's a different tool. I mean, you can find meaning in just dropping a thing of ink on something. So if you use a tool like AI to create something, what's the difference? It's being created in a second, and it's being used creatively. So as long as you're using that creativity, then I don't think there's much difference between using one tool versus another, right?
No. Well, out of all of your services and everything you do, what's your jam?
What's my jam?
Yeah.
What do I think is most fun, you mean?
Yes. Yeah. What's your jam? What's your favorite out of all of them?
I think my favorite would be the problem solving. It would be the tech support type stuff. I find that for that stuff, it's just, especially if it's something difficult, I need to figure it out. So I mean, when the more difficult the problem is, the more invested I get in trying to figure out what the solution is. So I think that would be where it is. So, and I do really like trying to simplify things so that people understand what it is that I just did. And, rather than just saying, oh, it's just magic, there's always a reason. There's always something there. And so that would be the most fun thing, part of my business. Other
Yeah,
than the
I
music.
said it's definitely a unique trait. If you have a mind like that, where people are selling something, you can kind of like visualize the problem, find the solution, and actually like come back with a creative way of, like you said, something that they can understand and not it's going to go, right over their heads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the most I think the most fun, and I mean I call that is it's sort of like I'm just a tech guy, but instead of having to hire somebody in your business that's full time, it's an on demand thing, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think before I've heard you say something about systems that breathe.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that means and how they can benefit a business owner?
Well, so sometimes things change, right? Your business is always moving around, and I think that there is a bit of rigidity, I think, in sometimes how people run systems. And what I mean by that is that uh, if there's no flexibility, then if something goes wrong, then everything goes wrong. And so I think it's important to have systems that are uh, flexible. I don't know how to explain it in a different way, but basically, every business is a little bit different, and I mean that's why I think AI is so exciting, because it's so much easier to create custom systems now than it ever was. Like there was always like this, sort of rigidity in the way that you would have to create something, but now using even GPTs and different types of chatbots, you can create systems that can adapt to whatever it is that's going on in your business and can change quite quickly. And so I think that that's where I think the future is going to be going. And the what I mean, what I'm trying to inspire people with the podcast that I'm doing with the Work at Home Rockstar podcast is I want more people to be self-employed and to start their own thing and not necessarily get stuck in that job forever that they don't like, because you can be a solopreneur, you can go all up to building a massive business working from home. And today more than ever, because of the time that you get back from using systems and using AI, you can compete so much easier now as a solopreneur. And all it is it's a matter of finding the right band, finding the right people around you that, number one, are able to help you in your business, but also teach you as you go along. And so I think that that's kind of a long answer to what you just said.
Oh no, it's fine, because I was going to go there next and find out about what inspired you and why you're doing the Home Rockstar podcast. But I love that. I always called it finding your tribe. But like you said, yeah, it's your band, right? Because when you guys are together, you jam out. They go easier.
Yeah, because I think one of the things that I would say, especially in the early years, that I missed the most about working in a cubicle was the water cooler type stuff. It's the camaraderie of the people around you, right? And when you start working for yourself, you can feel pretty alone pretty quickly. And I think that nowadays, though, with Zoom and with all these new tools, there is a way that you can find, not only you can find a mastermind, you can find coaches, and I think all of those things are important. You need to find people that align with your vision, and it's so much easier to do that because you've got the world to choose from rather than just your little local neighborhood, right?
Yeah. Yep. No, I really do. I really love how you have put all of that together. And like you said, when you're doing things alone from home, it can especially be lonelier if no one else in your family or your other half doesn't understand or support what you're doing, because then you're really a one-man band, and you got to find the rest of the group.
Yeah, that's really difficult. And I don't envy anybody who's in a situation like that. You really do need buy-in from your significant other. I mean, at some point anyway, because it is so difficult to motivate yourself when you're coming from a negative start. And, I do think, though, that now more than ever, it is more normal, right? To work from home and to do this. And there's lots of resources. I mean, it probably isn't anywhere near as difficult to get a spouse on board. I think the main challenge is always going to be your spouse is probably going to be looking out for your best interest. They're going to be looking out to make sure that their bills are going to get paid. And starting a business, I mean, that's difficult because you've got two choices, really. It's give up that income that you have that your family depends on and start working on something, or give up the time in the evenings and weekends that you're spending with your spouse in order to run the business. And both of those options are kind of terrible for most spouses, I think, right?
Yeah, they kind of are. I would always recommend, if people have a job at the time, to work on your plan B, kind of do it within. But I have seen people that just took that leap and it works well for them, but it doesn't work for everybody. But that's the thing, is we're all different. We all work differently.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think if I was to give some advice to somebody who's in a situation like that, I think, like, just because I mean, you probably have a why. Otherwise, why would you be doing this, right?
mm-hmm.
And I think that's where you need to start with. It's what Simon Sinek, start with why.
Yep.
I think it would be more or less trying to get your spouse to understand your why. Like, what are you trying to accomplish with this? Like, why do you even want to do this? You've got a job, everything's working out just fine. Why, right? And if you can really communicate that with your significant other, I think that the chances of them getting on board and going, okay, I see your vision, I see what you're trying to accomplish here, I think the chances are just going to increase drastically with them helping to support whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. And then the second part would be the how. That's the part that is a lot of faith-based. I mean, I didn't know how when I started. I just
Right.
knew why. And the how just kind of like unfolds as you go. But I think that, as with the podcast, I mean, the whole reason why I'm trying to do it the way I'm doing it is I'm, and just to kind of backtrack a little on the podcast, the criteria to be on the show is that you have to be working from home at least 51% of the time. And you have to pay your bills with the business. There is whatever, I think it's something around 350 guests that's been on the show now. And every one of them has paying their bills with their business. So there are people that are accomplishing it. So what do you need to do to get there? Well, there's going to be some work involved. However, it's not impossible. It's there. You can do it. And if there is a why, if there's a reason why you want to actually work from home rather than working in the cubicle, you can do it. And there are plenty of people that have led the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a beautiful podcast that you put together, and I was honored to be on it as well. So I really appreciate all the work that you are doing and putting together. We have about 2 minutes left. Okay. What do you want to leave everybody with today?
What do I want to leave everybody with? So I think it's such a radical idea in a way, but I think that many people, like when they look at their life, the job is like the main thing. And it's like everything has to work around the job, right? It's like, oh, well, I have to work, so everything kind of goes around that, all my hobbies, everything's kind of, but the job is the most inflexible thing. But that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. You could technically figure out what it is you want to do. And if it's music and you want to be up till 2 a.m, and hey, just on that note, I don't do that very often anymore. I've moved my gigs earlier in the night, but in my 20s, yeah. That's what it was. But I mean, I think that if we want to, whatever it is that you want in your life, you can create a job or an income stream that fits around that. And in the end, your energy is probably the most important thing, and being happy with what you're doing in life. Everything kind of runs off that. And if you're just not happy and things are not working out the way, you're not able to do the things that you love, then that's going to spill into everything else, and it's going to affect your health. It's going to affect everything. So you can do it. Just design the life and make the work around it. And I think that that is the way to move forward, especially in a world where we can do it now.
Oh yeah, you and I are in 100% agreement with that. I tell people, I said, if what you're doing doesn't light you up, you need to look at something else.
Yep.
Life is just too precious to go through that way.
Yep.
So in our last few seconds, because you asked me, and I know you got a Beatles shirt on, but I got to ask you, who's your favorite band?
Well, it's the Beatles.
It is Beatles.
Yeah.
It is
I've got
Beatles.
a bunch of Beatles shirts, and it's funny because when I first started learning guitar, the guys that were playing, they were big Beatles fans, and I didn't even really like the Beatles. I thought they were kind of poppy, but I really learned guitar on the Beatles. I had this book of all the Beatles songs in the proper keys, and you learn so much from it. So that's my favorite band.
Awesome. Well, we are out of time. So guys, if you are looking to build a business or you still want to have fun, you have trouble with tech, you definitely need to reach out with Tim, because as you can see, he very much enjoys what he's doing. So thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you.